Hello everyone, this is David from UCM Media and I'm here with Dr. Amir Jahangiri and we have upgraded our existence. And as you can see, we're in our new studio, which we'll be using off and on. There are a few announcements that I have for you guys, which are very exciting, apart from the upgrade as you're seeing here. The first is that we have published our YouTube video site, okay? And so on that site, you can find videos from not only ourselves, the UCM VIP show, but also from our partners, Patty Lucia, Nikki DeCrochet, and all of those people, so that you guys can absolutely interact with the people that we have put forward out there. So listen, we walk around the world and we try to find the best people, the real people who are doing real work. We do so not only for ourselves, but also for you guys, so that you guys can be spared the horrors of walking all over the planet looking for people who are actually doing real work, who are dedicated to their field. And so we want to say, first of all, thank you for viewing our shows and being a loyal audience. First of all, I'm going to pass this over to Amir, and Amir, you can come in and then we will start the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, my very warmest greetings to you. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. We sincerely appreciate your time and your attention. Today we're going to speak about channeling versus possession. What are the mechanisms, what happens, and what are the differences between these two? Are there any similarities by any chance? Mm-hmm. And where is the information coming from? How can you trust it? How can you identify if it's real or if it's somebody faking it? So it's a really interesting, wonderful topic. You're going to come across this very frequently in the world of esoterics, the world of light workers. Channeling is a very powerful tool, so it's appropriate that we have a look at this topic. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into definitions first of all. When people say channeling and they say possession, what does that mean? What are the differences? So channeling literally, well, pretty much like a channel on your TV, is a conduit of information from the astral realm into this plane of existence. It's a conduit of information. That's what it is. So the conduit of information could be like, I could be channeling an entity. I was actually at a channeling this last weekend and the weekend before. A very good dear friend of mine, Bob Hill, he's going to actually be on the show with us very soon. And so, yeah, he is. I finally got him to agree to come on to the show. And he's going to be on the show with us very soon. And so, listen, he channels an entity called Josiah. And what he brings is a level of information, a level of teaching that you would not normally have gotten from, well, just about anybody around the place. He channels a fifth dimensional being called Josiah. And so, that's what channeling is. Possession, however, is something completely different. In the concept of possession, the vessel that you are using is not being used as a conduit. It's more being used as a horse.
Yes.
And that entity usually is riding that horse until it's dead. Now, not all possession is negative possession, like with the head turning backwards and stuff like that. But I could pretty much tell you that most possession is negative. There's some good possessions, like for instance, people become possessed when a loved one is dying, but the individual who has died before, an entity possesses them to keep somebody else alive. All right, and there are partial possessions where people who are dying and they're being kept alive by entities, specifically by entities, and they keep going and they keep going. So not all possession I can say is negative, but a lot of it is. Amir, I'm going to let you jump in here.
So basically, let's think of the human vessel as an automobile, which can be rented out in an airport, a car for hire.
Mm-hmm.
So of course there are different models of automobiles. There are different grades of channels, so to speak. So anybody that signs the document and the contract can hire the automobile. Whether it becomes a channeling or possession very much depends on the character of the being that's renting the car. Are they going to drive it nicely in a civilized way, respecting traffic rules? Or are they going to burn out the tires, ash their cigarette on the dashboard, spill their coffee all over the beautiful leather upholstery? So you see, the treatment of the vessel is one of those parameters that makes a massive difference. Now, existing in our physical reality as an infinite soul is a very, very demanding task.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that just any being in the cosmos can actually do. So by definition, the original occupant of the vessel, the body, is a very high level entity, high level being, our soul. But by definition, then in this high energy physical reality, then channeling another high energy being. Another property of channeling is that it's extremely exhausting. After 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, if you're a real pro, near to an hour after the whole thing is finished, you're burnt out for days. It takes an immense amount of energy to do this kind of thing. So that's another sign. Both possession and channeling, they're using similar mechanisms. Now, what the intention and character of the being is differs, but the fact that it is very, very draining, both of these have it in common.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, are they riding the car like they've stolen it? Or are they riding it like they are in a long-term contract, hire purchase contract, and they don't want even a tiny scratch on the vehicle?
So here's the thing, right? I want to get into the concept of channeling versus possession. So I'm going to use a mayor's analogy, and I'm going to say the following. If you rented the car, what happens in the channeling and both channeling and possession is the following. In a channeling, you're driving the car and you have, let's say, rented the car, and another passenger comes and you say, you know what, you drive for a while. I'm going to go in the passenger seat. That's exactly what happens. In negative possession, as an example, you're driving the car and somebody hijacks the car, puts you in the trunk. Puts you in the trunk. And they're driving down the I-95 at the highest speed possible. Okay, they don't have to care about the car. Hey, like this was a Ferrari.
Going over bumps and you're in the back, you know, just hitting the boot, yeah.
So that's exactly what happens. So a lot of people don't know what happens during the channeling and why it is that people find it exhausting. A channeling is exhausting because your brain is being rewired to a higher frequency to accept what is happening, to channel that information. I want to speak, when we're talking about these things, I want to speak through analogy. So you have a 386 computer. You remember the old Windows with the little yellow folder things? You have a 386 computer and you're hooking it up to ADSL, high-speed internet, optical cables and stuff like that. The computer has to upregulate to those systems. CPU under pressure, RAM under pressure, everything is under pressure because it is not used to running at that speed. All right? And so in a possession situation, it's not only hooked up to ADSL, but it's also hooked up to ADSL that gives no shits what it does to the CPU, right? That's in a negative possession. And so, guys, a lot of people want to start channeling. So they ask me, David, how do I start channeling? Most channels are made. Most channels are born, I shouldn't say, not made. So some people are born with that highway to the astral realm. They're born with the highway set up. To learn channeling is something else. You would have to learn a lot of deep meditation, and you would have to be in contact with the astral world, and it's a complicated process. It's not as easy and cut and dried as you think it would be. Okay? And so, honestly, when you're talking about channeling as a practice, it is not advised if you are faint of heart. It's not advised if you have physical illnesses that debilitate you. If you're a cancer patient or you're recovering from cancer, I wouldn't suggest you learn channeling. Sorry.
Correct.
And so you got to be very careful. Now, the possession aspect is very interesting because possessions happen in two different categories. I invite the entity in, or I make myself so unaware, so despondent, so broken down that, let's say I'm idling the car and crying inside the car. Entity comes. I don't even notice that the entity is picking me up and putting me in the trunk. Okay? That is not an invitation, that's a hijacking. But the fact of the matter is, in both scenarios, you are being removed from that seat, either by your free will or otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of channeling and possession, I would say that if you want to become a channel, I wouldn't suggest it if you have debilitating illnesses, if you suffer from depression or anything of those sorts. Both of them, whether you want to be demonically possessed for what, I don't know why you would want to do that. Some people do actually. Some people do want to be demonically possessed. There are left-hand path practitioners that deliberately allow themselves to be ridden just to gain supernatural power.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure why you would want to do that, but if you're going to become a channel, you should be of optimum physical health. You should be mentally stable, and you must submit to the rigors of deep meditation, yoga nidra, I would definitely suggest. I would suggest that you understand relaxation, and I would also make sure that you understand how to disconnect that line to the astral world, right? You have to be grounded, and groundedness is not as easy as people think it is. Well, I'm grounded. No, actually, grounding is a specific set of processes that you go through to make sure that your connection to this plane of existence is cemented. And I'm going to pass this over to you as well.
Absolutely. So with the analogy of the car, during a channeling or possession, which, by the way, have very similar mechanisms, your engine RPM is going to be in the red the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So not every make and model of car can go through that kind of stress. That's just a known. You'll burn the engine. And so many people going through channeling or possession damage the physical vessel, sometimes irreparably.
Yeah, specifically the heart as well. Yeah.
Yes. The heartbeat goes up, sometimes over 140, 150. There's a great stress on every cell of the body. It's not the natural design unless you are born this way or specifically make modifications to the vessel. Let's say with the vehicle, overheating is something that's occurring. Also in channeling, the body core temperature rises, so you have to have some sort of a contingency plan, how to get rid of the extra heat, quite literally.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's the matter of the lubrication of the engine, the physical structure of the vehicle. Now these all apply to the body. So it is possible to acquire these modifications through practice. Certain modalities of yoga, certain magical processes absolutely do this over an extended period of time. That's something that you must keep in mind. It's not a single ritual or a single session that you do this and bingo, we've changed out the radiator, we're good to go. Unfortunately, this kind of physical evolution, and it really is an upgrade to the system, it takes time. Slowly but surely this does occur.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'd like to have a look at where does the native consciousness go? Because in a lot of cases, the majority of cases, the person that's the original occupant of the body goes somewhere else. And when they come back, they probably don't remember what occurred.
With blood on my hands.
yeah, is this blood on my hands? Why is the bumper all crumbled up? Did I run over somebody? I hope it wasn't a person. You know, so this kind of thing does occur. With some channels, I mean, famous ones in history, like Edgar Cayce, when the gentleman went under, quote unquote, went under, he was lying down peacefully, speaking words somebody else transcribed, and when he came back to the surface, came back in, he didn't know what happened. This is very common. Now, there may be a small percentage of channelers that are present when this is happening. So it almost looks like multiple personalities joking with each other. The higher being, the entity, says something, the person says something back, and they both laugh. Sometimes you hear multiple voices as they're arguing with each other, having a jam, enjoying the session. But that's very rare. So again, passing on to David, in your experience, what's the proportion of those who go in the boot and those who stay in this passenger seat?
To be quite honest, the professional channels I've met out there who actually are real channels, there's no question as to whether or not they're channeling. Everything changes. And so what are the indicators that somebody is channeling correctly? That individual would have gone into meditation peacefully, voluntarily, first of all, to allow the entity to come in slowly. Now, I went to a channeling just last week, and that entrance of the entity was kind of rough. But Bob has been doing this like since forever. And so he has the control, but when that entity comes into the individual, you don't have to wonder whether or not that individual is channeling or not. You feel it. You feel it if you're in the room. You absolutely do. And so what happens in the channeling in terms of the consciousness? When Bob channels, as an example, my friend from last weekend, what happens is that his consciousness is kind of aware of what is happening. So there is no get into the trunk effect. It's more of a sort of partnership where you do your thing. I'm just going to be here doing something else. I'm going to be watching, like playing a PlayStation game or something.
Or having a snooze in the passenger seat.
Correct. So to him, it's just a meditation that's happening with the consciousness knowing what is happening on the other side. For those of us who have meditators, I'm sure you guys would have stumbled across something similar, where you are meditating and your consciousness is put into a little section of yourself, and you are actually having a conversation with aspects of yourself. And that's why we get into discussions of multidimensionality. Yes. Because the truth of the matter is that if you are meditating, you're doing contact meditation, you will regularly have those conversations with yourself, with your higher self, showing you all different aspects of perspectives of a situation that you would not have had access to had you been completely conscious. And so I like to generally get into the meat of the matter. Your conscious mind is what you guys are using to listen to this broadcast right now. Your subconscious mind is the storehouse for your memories and your emotions and all your body's unconscious processes. But inside of you is a superconscious mind, which is the second personality that you have inside of you that you don't even know is there. It keeps speaking to you. I want to break this down for you bit by bit. It keeps speaking to you, but you don't know that it's there. And so when it's speaking to you, you're thinking, when you stumble across it for the first time, who is this guy speaking to me? This guy is the guy that is making you do the things that you don't understand why it is that you're doing. And here's the real kicker. I want you guys to expand your minds a little bit. This guy is not one guy. It's all aspects of you existing in different dimensionalities, speaking to you at the same frigging time. So you may think, well, I don't know where certain actions of mine come from. I have this deep longing, this sense of void to find something or whatever else. And I don't know why, because I have everything. I have money, I have the family, whatever else. But the other guy is speaking to you and is telling you, hi, could you like do something else, as an example? And this is basically how channeling works. So I will have to say, everybody's channeling every day in a sense. But it's kind of like, and I'm going to refer to possession in a little bit. Everybody's channeling every day in a sense, but the channeling is hidden from them. And so the ability to channel other fourth dimensional beings is another issue. Okay? And there are some people who, when they learn to channel, instead of opening the door of the car and letting the occupant in and whatever else, they take off the door completely. So imagine driving a car with no driver's side door, right? Anybody comes in, anybody comes out at any point in time. Not a good practice, guys. It is not a good practice. And the reason why they do that is because they don't want to have the problem of getting into that channeling state, that trance state again. So they want that door open so that anything can come in and anything can go out. Okay, let me tell you how that ends for those of you who practice this. It ends with you in an insane asylum. Trust me when I tell you that. And the only reason you guys are saying, well, no, that David, that will never happen, I have control. The only reason why you guys are saying that is because you haven't come across the right entity as yet.
Yeah. Or the wrong entity.
As the case may be. Okay, because hijacking can be something else. So, guys, I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. The consciousness can be a passenger and in collaboration with whatever entity you're channeling. The entity that you channel every day is a multidimensional being that is you. That's the door that's closed. You're in there with a passenger. You guys are in there with a passenger already. The passenger is your navigator. That passenger is sitting right next to you. He's telling you, go down this road, go down that road. I want to see this place. I want to see that place. And you are the driver. That's all you are. You who are listening to me right now, you're just the chauffeur. That's all you are. The passenger in the car is calling the shots. Now, the driver may say, but I can get there quicker through this road and that road. But the navigator tells you, nah, go down this road. And it's when you decide, you know what, I'm going to go down whatever road I feel like. And then you end up in a dead end, literally, figuratively. And then you got to go back the way you came from, and because you got to learn this lesson. So the entity that you're channeling every day, all of us are channels to a certain degree, is your higher mind. When we're talking about channeling in this show, however, we're talking about when you can channel different entities from the astral plane. In a possession scenario, we're talking about you're not the passenger, you're not the navigator. Something has come in and we go in places.
Yes.
We're going places, right? This is what we're talking about. So I hope you guys understood what I'm saying there. If you don't, you can always ask me questions in the comments below. Amir, I'm going to pass this over to you.
So now comes I'd like to focus on the physical effects of channeling.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be the case that an individual channels a very high vibrational entity and it causes physical changes in the body for the better. For example, healing extended to the host, the vessel that's the host, the consciousness that's the host, and also other people. So this is one of those modalities of healing that's the road less traveled. And seeing this is actually rather incredible. You feel the entity that's there. It raises the hair on your body. You start crying. emotions come to the surface, you feel it changing different aspects of your body, healing them. And then, of course, there might be a negative entity that comes in, lower fourth dimension, lower astral plane, that causes havoc on the body, irreparable damage. So these two things also occur depending on what entity you choose to let in, whether it's by classy, polite invitation with a set protocol. They come in, give you a little present, bow, say namaste, and then gently sit in the driver's seat and ask that you put on your seatbelt while they're driving. Or is it that they drag you out at gunpoint, kick you in the boot, shut it, and then just speed off and make sure they go over some extra bumps on the way? You know, this does also happen. So, yeah, this is an incredible world, this whole channeling business. One must be very vigilant. Of course, we are the number one in our universe. Our own well-being must always be the first priority. So maybe something happens one time and you see, oh, no, that doesn't go. That's not acceptable. That's your duty to stop it there and then before things really get out of hand. And of course, on the other side, you may say, oh my goodness, this was life-altering in the most profound way, most positive way. And then you establish a relationship with that entity that is very respectful to the sovereignty of your being, to the dignity of your being. And that's a path to great knowledge and great wisdom, great power, great health, and dare I say, great pleasure.
I want to add to what Amir said. Well, not add, I want to just go over some of the stuff that he said. So what he's trying to tell you is that channeling could be workout at the gym for you, and it could physically optimize you because your heart rate is going to go up, your endocrine system is in alignment, and electrical activity in your body is increased dramatically during a channeling. So it can have very positive side effects, like meditation. It can have very positive side effects to your system. It can optimize your health. Also, the beings that you channel during that time, they are very grateful for allowing themselves to be seen and heard. And they do leave side effects onto you. So as an example, I know people who channel, they have a headache and it's removed after they channel. It's just removed. There are people who channel, and they channel because the being that they're channeling is a healer. And so they channel and they heal other people. And I don't mean other people who are present. I mean other people in family that may be overseas, way far. Time and space is of no consequence. And that has been the way for many, many years. You may not be a healer, but you know a guy, right?
Yes.
You know, I know a guy.
Upstairs.
Right. And so you channel that person. I remember in the Bible, there's a verse where Jesus is not taking credit for the healing of people. In my Father's name, he calls. Okay? So he's not taking credit. And you guys, when you read these verses, don't let these little things go over your mind. So the channels who heal people, as an example, they're channeling entities, and they always give credit to the entity that they are bringing in.
Yes.
As a matter of, well, just common decency and manners.
Exactly.
Okay. And so, even as Amir and I are speaking, I want you guys to know that when we get onto these broadcasts, we don't plan anything. There's no back and forth between us and so on. This is a conversation we're having as we're speaking. And both of us are channeling our higher mind to give you the information. Both of us are channeling our higher mind. So all praises to my higher mind and Amir's higher mind. All praises to both of our higher minds for giving us the information. That is basic channeling. To take gratitude for what is happening on this broadcast for myself. Yes, this is David. I know myself, and I know that that's dumb. That is dumb. and it's arrogant. So I'm just telling you that information that we give on these broadcasts, we are doing it. We say riffing, but what we're doing is surfing, and we're pulling down the information as we're speaking. So there's no scripted anything when we do these broadcasts. And so with regard to the other aspect, the possession aspect, and I'm talking about negative possession, it has negative effects on the body because entity gets into the car, bangs up the engine. The entity does not have to care what happens to the car. So when you are being ridden, as an example, if the entity wants to experience jumping off a second-story building, then that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And you in the truck, and there's nothing you can do about it. If the entity wants to experience, oh, the entity tries sex. Oh, this is really cool. I think I'll do this every hour, on the hour, for the next 5 days.
Non-stop.
You see, the entity can heal the body to a certain extent because the entity doesn't experience these things, right? So it can work that way. And then you get that vessel back. And then you're like, what the hell happened to me? What the hell? I'm sore. Like, yes. Things are broken. Yes. Right? I'm sore, things are broken. What has happened? And guys, I just want you guys to know that it's very important for you guys to know the difference between channeling and possession. So how to tell whether someone is faking a possession? Amir, I'm faking a possession or a channeling actually. Amir, I'm going to pass this one to you.
Well, some things are pretty difficult to fake. So let's go to the negative entity that's hijacked the vehicle. Maybe that entity has never seen a car. Forget having a driver's license. So they twist and turn things to the extreme. And this shows in contortions of the physical body.
Yeah, to figure out
images and figurines of this kind of contortion go back all the way to pre-dynastic Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, China, when the body is contorted in a way that's absolutely unnatural, quite frankly causes damage. Mm-hmm. And you see this in modern Hollywood movies, representations of such. So yeah, maybe the entity says, oh, these wheels suck. I want to drive the car on a ceiling. It flips the car and gets what? Pushes it down the road all the way on its ceiling. So yeah, that's one of those things you see. Or exerting too much force from the physical body. That unnatural strength that's actually tearing and ripping muscle, fiber, and ligaments. So that's something a normal person wouldn't fake. Now on the positive side, it's the energy that you can absolutely feel. And that's not something that in our normal mode of operation in the physical realm we can replicate. Mm-hmm. It's quite literally from another domain. It's a presence that you feel with every layer of your consciousness, with every fiber of your being. So how to know if somebody's faking it or not? Just observe carefully. There are signs that it's not possible to fake those signs. Whether it's extreme bliss and grace or something that quite frankly is horrifying. They're going to be so out of the normal range of what you see day to day. Those are the telltale signs. Mm-hmm. Then there are the more sort of docile channelings where the person's actually seated. It's voluntary. Still, the essence of what's being channeled comes through, overwhelmingly so. There's no denying it. It's that kind of thing about pure, unadulterated truth. Your heart knows, your mind knows, every part of your being knows, oh, this is true. You question it. And that would be another sign. So it's not somebody tumbling with their words, trying to come up with the next thing. No, no, no. It's a pure, uncut stream of consciousness that does not require editing or modification or change in rhythm. It comes out the first time perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some signs that you can have a look at to see if it's fake or real.
Yep, and I'm going to go over what you just said again, because this is very good information you've just given. Guys, I have been to a channeling, and I've seen several demonic possessions in my time.
Yeah.
Both fake and both real. So in a channeling, in the instance of a channeling, you guys don't have to ask. It's like going to a seance. You guys don't have to ask whether or not this is happening. The energy is right there. It's not something that is from here.
Yeah.
The same thing in a demonic possession. Listen, I have been to a demonic possession that was a very real possession, right, in a small island that I lived in some years ago. The lady in question, Amir already told you guys that it dials up the information in the human body to 100%. So for those of you guys out here who think you guys are strong, you're only using 30% of your capacity.
Yeah.
When an entity enters you, that could dial up to 90%, 100%.
Yeah.
So let me put it to you this way. I went to a possession, a depossession. And before I even got into the building, there were 1,000 needles in my skin. 1,000 needles everywhere. So I'm like, this is bad. This is going to be bad. So said, so done. The young lady who was being depossessed was what, 120 pounds at maximum, soaking wet. She picked up a church bench and flung it across the church. Okay, 120 pounds can do that shit. 120 pounds can do that shit. I've been training in gyms and martial arts for years. I'm telling you, in the present state of how strong or whatever I am, I would find it difficult to do that. This little woman did this with ease. That's how you know definitively that somebody is riding somebody. The magnitude of the strength of those muscles has been dialed up to 100%. Adrenals, her adrenaline level is through the roof, and it takes several people to hold these people down. Now you could say, well, David, insane people are like that. And I'm going to ask you the question. Where do you think insane people get their strength from? You think it's coming from here? Nope. It's because they've broken a veil, they are being ridden, and for that matter, when they're being ridden, their abilities are dialed up to 100%, and sometimes even more than that. So when it is that you're trying to restrain somebody who is insane, as an example, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this person is strong, and then one man comes, two men, 3 men, and they still can't hold that person down, then you know that that individual is being ridden. They're throwing you around like rag dolls. So in the past, people have had to actually chain these people up to get them to stop agitating, to get them to stop harming themselves and others. And I'm going to tell you, if you've ever been to a depossession, it's something that you will never forget. It is something that you will never forget. It is printed in your mind, and then you have no doubt in your mind that this is actually a thing. Everything about that energy. And the other thing that you can always tell in a depossession is the smell. The smell, Amir. That smell of sulfur, that sulfuric smell that you can't get out of your nose. You can't escape it. So that would be how you know when a possession is real. It smells bad, it looks bad, the person is way tripped out, the person is tripping out on drugs that hasn't been invented yet in this timeline. And so in a channeling situation, the energy that is there is an inclusive energy when it's a voluntary channeling, right? The energy that is there, it's like a voluntary thing, and the entity is in communion with the people that are in there. So the channeling is not on the vessel itself. The rest of the people around there are included in the channeling. The entity is literally speaking to them and speaking to their needs and stuff like that. And that's how you know. And there is no tripping of information. There is no stataco kind of discussion or whatever else. There is always a clear channel, a clear channel. It's like speaking to someone. But the other indicator I would say for channeling, the channeling which I did last weekend, I recorded it for you guys. I want to show you guys what a genuine channel looks like. Okay, I should have shared my screen on this one. I'm sorry, but I'm going to actually stream it to social media on Thursday. This show is going on Tuesday, so I'm going to stream Bob to channeling Josiah to you guys on Thursday. So please be attentive and be there for the Thursday show. And so what I want to say with regard to channeling is that when it happens, there is a peace and a light that comes there when it's voluntary. That entity is there to have communion with you, with the people around, with the vessel even, okay, and to share things. And so you don't feel like you're in the presence of anything otherworldly, or you don't feel spooked out.
Exactly.
You feel okay with it. No foul smell, no needles underneath your skin, no person throwing church benches around the church, right? You feel at peace with yourself, and yeah, no weird contortions and vomiting and stuff like that. So that is what I have to say to you guys. I have seen these things in my life. They are printed in my mind, stuff that I will never forget. And so I want you guys to understand the indicators and so on. Amir, I'm going to pass this over to you as well.
So on the flip side of the positive kind of channeling that you just mentioned, that feeling of grace, inclusion, communion, another thing that a person possessed by a negative entity has is that they can induce horror in the most hardened special forces soldiers or life career time criminals just with a gaze. The vessel gazes into their eyes and the other person wets themselves. Quite literally, loses control of the bladder, urine starts flowing. And this is really overwhelming. That's really something horrifying.
It is.
And certain armies in the past have used this. So they had soldiers that were ridden by demons, demon soldiers. So that consciousness which is using the vessel is literally not of the human realm anymore.
Yeah.
And these warriors go into legend. Namely, the culture that had this was the Japanese culture. Elite warriors and certain members of the samurai or the ninja would intentionally do this.
Yes, and they actually practiced something called kobudera, right? It's a kind of magic that allows you to be possessed. And just so that we're clear, the word berserk comes from Amir's ancestors, guys.
Yeah. The Vikings,
Guys,
yes.
ancestors. Yeah, so the word berserkers comes from his ancestors. The berserkers were people who imbibed the spirit of the beast. They could not be killed easily at all. And so they literally, in wartime, went berserk and killed like several people in any encounter.
Yeah.
And so that is an example of demonic possession. They think that they were being ridden by animals. No, they were being ridden by spirits.
Yes.
Who protected them and gave them stuff. In the samurai version, the masks that the samurai used to wear were them inviting demons inside themselves with the horns and stuff like that. And so when you saw that coming to your village, you know you had a problem. You know, because they would kill without any kind of compunction, no hesitation. You know everything. Everybody's going to die. Everybody's going to die. Guys, what Amir said about looking into the eyes of somebody who has been possessed, I've had to restrain somebody who was insane before. I'm a big guy. I've had to restrain somebody who was possessed before. I've had to do that. It's not a good idea to look into their eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a good idea. So if you have a family member who is taking opiates as an example, or is strung out and stuff like that, there will be times when they will be ridden. When you are restraining that person, restrain them. Don't if you look into their eyes, you can tell that they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dorothy is not home.
Yeah.
Dorothy has gone to Oz. And whatever's inside of there is something that is not your relative. And you must take this into consideration and restrain that individual with extreme prejudice. Okay? Because that individual will hurt you. Amir, with regard to the channeling and possession construct, a lot of people tend to suggest to me, has suggested to me that, well, channeling and possession is just flip sides of a coin. And I tend to challenge that notion, you know. I tend to challenge that notion because, you see, in a channeling, the conduit is established on both sides.
Yes.
The door is not being ripped off of the car and the entity running up inside there, or any entity. Or just so that we're clear, a lot of you guys out here watching this broadcast are running your car without a driver's side door. Because y'all are practicing a lot of rituals that you find on the net and so on for opening that channel and just blowing the door off the car. Guys, be very careful with that, huh? So the particular techniques that I'm talking about are like stuff like involution. For those of you who are part of coaching systems or healing systems where you are trying to open this big door so that this thing will enter you, where you're deliberately calling on archangels and you're calling on entities by name, and you have no idea what that entity is.
Yeah.
For those of you who are channeling Mephistopheles as an example, for those of you who are channeling Baal,
Yeah.
for those of you who are channeling these kinds of entities and so on, hoping to make some sort of cooperative alliance between you and those entities so that you can gain supernatural power, those entities do not specialize in like being invited in and you open the door and you say, come have a seat. They don't specialize in that. They want that driver's side door open, off. They're taking the door off the hinges completely.
Yes.
So whatever entities that you're working with, and I'm going to call them by name on this broadcast because a lot of you are working with them. Beelzebub, Baal, Mephistopheles, and all the lower demons of the Holy Trinity, the unholy Trinity.
Yes.
Do not mess with that stuff if you are not an adept at what you are doing.
Exactly
Okay.
right.
I'm going to pass this to you.
So with the negative entities, if you're a serious left-hand path practitioner, you will earn the right of passage to hold your own, meaning you don't allow the door of your house to be ripped off for them to have free access. If you're anything other than a serious practitioner, somebody who's in it for life and has been for many lifetimes, if you know deep down in your heart you haven't reached that level of proficiency yet, please don't mess with these entities. They will look at you like a delicious meal with a cherry on top. They will devour you. And out of personal experience, I can tell you that it is a massive undertaking doing any kind of work with these entities. You have to be very strong, and even at that point, each event is going to leave you drained, completely drained for weeks. Just don't do it. There's no bit out of it. I can vouch for this. Now, on the other side, the positive side, channeling the higher aspects of yourself, is completely opposite to that. It starts with a pleasant feeling, it ends with a pleasant feeling. The interaction is enriching, nourishing, beautiful. So if you want to channel something, channel your higher self. It is an idiot-proof way. Your higher self is already there. Just instead of a tiny pipe, make a highway so that communication becomes fluid. And again with angels, as David correctly said, you have no idea what these beings are. In the Abrahamic tradition, they're praised and glorified, but really, I mean, going back to the show we did on angels and aliens, these guys are gangsters. A gangster is a gangster is a gangster. You don't want to channel them either. You have no idea what they're going to do to you. So do your due diligence. If you're going to attempt anything like this, make sure you find somebody who can instruct you on the correct way of doing this and strengthening every aspect of your being. And then do it with great caution. Don't start with negative entities. You don't want to do that. It's going to end badly. It's like dealing with the mob. One way or another, you're screwed. Please just don't do it. It's not good for you.
I think people.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
No, I think they get caught up in the idea that I want supernatural power and I want everybody to know that I have supernatural power, and that's a very superficial means. And to be quite honest, and I'll be very honest with you guys, these entities which I mentioned before, they do give you supernatural power, but at what cost? At what cost? You will gain supernatural power almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
But at what cost? Because you're not ready. You're not ready. Okay, people have been practicing for 20, 30 years. They're still not ready to be dealing with these kinds of entities and so on. And for that matter, just so that we're clear, for those of you who have candles at your home, summoning Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel, these are assassination creatures.
Yeah.
These are assassination creatures. Their body count in the Old Testament is rather high. Why? And they summon them for stupid things. Like they summon them for stupid things. Why would you want to hook up your transistor radio to the power lines outside your house? Why would you want to do that? Like, oh, I have a transistor radio. I want to listen to the news. Let me go outside, climb an electrical pole, and stick the batteries directly onto the pole. You don't need to do that for a transistor radio. You want to manifest love in your life? Become a better person. Channel your higher mind and ask your higher mind, I need to attract that person. Boom.
Yes.
Solution. What you don't do is get a bunch of candles with Archangel Michael. Archangel Gabriel says, I want a man or a woman in my life. Why, guys? Why? Right? Listen, I understand the concept of prayer and all that kind of stuff, and you look with prayer, but what, guys, you don't need to do that. You want to attract somebody that you like love in your life and so on. You just need to become a better person and sit down with yourself and clean yourself out, and that person will appear. I 100% guarantee you.
Yeah.
Right? So with regard to the channeling and possession, I suppose my final word on the subject is, with regard to channeling, my advice is to channel your higher mind first, and then let it develop naturally.
Yeah.
So if you want to actually access the astral world and so on, it is better that you start with your higher mind. It is the closest being to you that's inside the car with you. It came with the passenger on board. Your navigator's right there. It's which is kind of funny.
Yes.
You have a navigator right next to you. You're not speaking to the navigator, but you're going to go outside your car and speak to people on the street? No. Yes. Like, the navigator has the GPS, he's got Siri, he's got Google.
Everything,
right?
Yeah.
And so, guys, start with that, first of all, and then you move on to other things if you so desire. You want to become an adept. With regard to possession and voluntary possession, no. if you are in desperate needs and you want to be possessed by an ancestor, right, who has moved on to a higher dimension, I understand that. Like my baby is sick. My great grandfather used to be a healer. I need a conduit to my grandfather. Okay, but I don't know what to do physically. So I invite my grandfather in to take control and save my child. Understood. Let me tell you what's not understood. I want to see everything. Let me invite Beelzebub inside myself, and so I can experience everything. Beelzebub doesn't give a damn about the vessel that you're running. He'll dial that up to 100 and drive that like he stole it, according to Amir. And then where will you be? With a broken car, probably in a wheelchair. So that's my final word on the matter. Amir, the final word, as usual, is at you.
Well, thank you, David. So, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, if you are willing to see more and know more, as David perfectly put, start with your higher self, the highest aspect of yourself, because you never know. Maybe in the ranking of things, your higher self is much more elevated than any being that's within reach. So you have a beautiful car with a sat-nav with all these sophisticated computers. Make sure you know what the full potential of the vessel is before you go on trying to upgrade it. Maybe the upgrade is actually a downgrade. Now, with regards to negative entities, I like to use the analogy of knocking on the door of a loan shark, knowing you can't pay back. The loan shark isn't going to refuse. They're just going to say, oh, yes, please come in. Another juicy victim. And then you're left paying over and over with interest, and they're going to send people to your doorstep. Hey, pay back. So please don't do that. Just to round things up, all the wisdom you need is already within you. You came into this incarnation knowing what you will need, and all that is at your disposal. What is the point of knowledge that cannot be utilized or turned into wisdom? Nothing. It's just a burden. Maybe you gain insight, but it's to terrible things. That will damage you, occupy your mind for as long as you live. What's the point in that? Nothing. So never underestimate how complete, how beautiful your own being is. Start with that and stick with that. It's all you will ever need.
All right, thank you. And guys, once again, our YouTube channel is live. Please go there, subscribe, like. We're trying to get people to see our videos and so on. All our videos are going to be posted up there. We've neatly organized them into categories for you guys. And so if you guys have any questions or comments, once again, I'm going to remind you that we are going to be having our live call-in show where you get to come in and interact with us very soon. That will be announced. Apart from that, guys, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you guys later. Oh, by the way, watch out for our channeling session on Thursday. I am going to stream this so that you guys can see it, okay? All right, take care, guys. See you guys.